Hello, I'm MultiPrometheus1, and welcome to episode 6 of In Defense of Blank, where I look at movies that I think deserve more credit. Today, we're going to be looking at one of the most anticipated comic book films of 2016 that, unfortunately, disappointed a lot of people. The one and only Batman the Killing Joke. Based upon one of the most famous and critically acclaimed graphic novels, like ever, Batman the Killing Joke was expected to maintain the drama, creativity, creep factor, and themes about human psychology from the original story. They wanted the film to be the perfect character study of the Joker that the book was. And, to be honest, I think it is. I read the book before I saw the film. I was right where you guys were, and I think it's a good adaptation. It knows exactly what to keep from the book and what to be creative about on its own. It perfectly conveys the complex and brilliant symbiotic relationship between Batman and the Joker, and it really delves deep into the Joker's philosophy, mindset, and psychology. It's the perfect character study of one of the greatest villains of all time, and I can't believe so many people didn't like it. Time to delve deep into one of my absolute favorite comic book films, and that's saying a lot, Batman the Killing Joke.
First of all, I realize this is probably not how you thought the story would start.
Yeah, it isn't. This is The Killing Joke, right? The virtual textbook on the character of the Joker? Why are we getting narration from Batgirl? Take that question, save it for later, and I promise I'll address it. We're introduced to Barbara Gordon, aka Commissioner Gordon's daughter, aka Batgirl, and we see the thing people usually complain about first, the animation. While I will admit it's not as spectacular as, say, the animation in Mask of the Phantasm or The Dark Knight Returns, I'd say it's not that bad. It's not magnificently impressive, but it's not a Goddamn Disney ripoff either. She meets up with Batman, voiced by legendary Batman voice actor Kevin Conroy, and they successfully stop a robbery. It turns out the guy committing the robbery is the nephew of a huge crime boss who isn't too happy with him.
You're gonna give me my money back, nephew. Every cent. Otherwise, you're gonna become a very distant relative very soon. Capiche?
He tries stealing from his uncle to get money to pay back his uncle. Not smart. When Batgirl stops him, he seems creepily into her. Batman shows up with some info on him.
His name is Paris. Paris Franz.
You're kidding. I guess not.
And she gets upset when he tells her not to go near him without him. Now this brings us to the very big problem with this movie. It's a problem so big that even I have to admit it was a really, really, really bad decision. You're probably wondering to yourself, Prometheus, you went on and on about how this movie was the perfect character study of the Joker. Why are we focusing on some random mafia guy and on Batgirl trying to deal with her strained relationship with Batman?
He won't say it, but I'm the best damn student he ever had. So if he's gonna start making decisions based on emotions, of which he has zero, then I think we've got a problem.
Well, in one of the dumbest decisions in recent comic book film history, the first 30 minutes of this movie have nothing to do with the Killing Joke storyline at all. I'm not kidding, like, for the first 30 minutes of this movie, no aspect or part of the Killing Joke graphic novel is referenced or acknowledged in any way. The first 30 minutes literally have nothing to do with the movie. The first half hour is entirely focused on Batgirl and her struggle to form a successful partnership with Batman. It has absolutely nothing at all to do with the book this movie's based on. This was a really bad idea, and it's one risk they really shouldn't have taken. However, I think I know why they did it. I still don't think they should have, but I can kind of understand why they thought they needed to do it. I'm not going to get into it now. But later on, I'll explain why, and it'll tie into things a little bit better. Until then, because the next 20 minutes really have nothing to do with anything, nothing to do with the themes or the ideas the book was, or the movie was trying to get across, I'm just going to quickly sum it up. Franz continues to act sexually creepy towards Batgirl, and she becomes ironically intrigued. He finally betrays his uncle and kills him off before Batgirl and Batman are able to get him into police custody. The frustration and tension between the two heroes reaches a breaking point. Batman says a really powerful line.
I thought we were partners.
We are. but we're not equals. Not even close.
And Barbara Gordon decides to quit her life as Batgirl and go back to being a regular young woman, free from the constant pressure to please Batman and prove herself to him. So there we go. There's the weird Batgirl prologue to this movie. They shouldn't have put it in there. But to be honest, it's not really that bad. It doesn't even come close to one of the best Batman things ever, but it's still entertaining. It still delivers some legitimate drama and emotion. It still gives us an interesting insight into Batgirl's character and her mind, and it does a decent job of portraying her as someone who wants to please a father figure, but can't due to her lack of understanding of the world that said father figure is caught in. Honestly, if they had just released this as a short film or an episode of a TV series, I think it would have done alright. It's just the fact that they randomly pasted it onto the front of an adaptation of The Killing Joke that really hurts it. That is, for one thing. Play it. That's right. You saw that correctly. Batman and Batgirl have sex. What?! Okay, not only is this incredibly wrong on so many levels, what with the age difference between them and 30 trillion other things, but this makes no sense! Number one, this comes completely out of nowhere. Nothing in the scene leads up to it, nothing in the scene prompts it, it just suddenly happens. Number two, this is completely out of character for both of them. Barbara Gordon, a naive young woman struggling to prove herself to someone she sees as a father figure, would never suddenly have sex with said father figure. And Batman, someone who's struggling with mental instability due to a lifetime of tragedy and depression, someone who's allowed his painful past to provide him with wisdom beyond his years, would never suddenly have sex with a young woman he's trying to protect. There is not enough space in God's great universe to contain the amount of words that could be said about how out of character this is for both of them. That took a lot out of me. But now that the first 30 minutes are out of the way, we can finally get into the movie. We can finally get into the Killing Joke storyline and how freaking brilliant it is. Let's do this. Batman is called in to look at a group of corpses who appear to have been killed by the Joker several years earlier. This motivates him to go to Arkham Asylum to visit the clown himself in a desperate attempt to talk things out.
I need to know, for when that time comes, that I'd made a genuine attempt to talk things over, to try and avert the inevitable, just once.
But it turns out the man he was talking to wasn't the Joker at all, but an imposter, and the real Joker has escaped once again. We then cut to an old, dilapidated theme park, where we meet the star of the movie, and I mean it. He's arguably the main character of the story, and he completely dominates every scene he's in. The Joker, voiced by the one, the only, Mark Hamill. If you ask any comic book fan who they think the best Joker actor is, it's hard to find one that won't say Mark Hamill. Every time he voices the character, he brings such an otherworldly, layered vocal performance that conveys a perfect balance between method and madness. And yes, I do dare say it, this is probably Hamill's best Joker performance to date.
Well, it's garish, ugly, and smells like piss. Can't quite make out whether it's bums or rats, but it's piss. I'm a connoisseur when it comes to eau de toilette. As for the rides, any innocent little child getting on one could be maimed, or worse.
So you don't like it?
Don't like it? I'm crazy for it.
My goodness, I love his Joker voice so much. And, guess what? I met him. Oh yeah, that's me. And then no wait, that's me. And that's Mark Hamill. And I'm next to him, and I met him. Right there. I met Mark Hamill. Love me. Please. The Joker kills the owner of the park in his signature way and begins to prepare his plan. We then see a flashback to before he went insane, back when he was a struggling stand-up comedian who hated himself because he couldn't support his pregnant wife.
Oh God, I'm sorry. I don't mean to take this out on you. You're suffering enough being married to a loser.
Honey, that's not...
Yes, it is true. I can't support you.
Hamill does a really good job here of creating a mix between his Joker voice and his natural voice, giving us what the character likely sounded like before he went crazy. I love the face the Joker makes when it dissolves back to the present. It perfectly conveys how that tortured soul still exists within him in some way, and that he hasn't completely lost his identity. We then cut to Batman in the Batcave, who's contemplating how two people could possibly be such hated enemies without really even knowing each other at all.
I don't know him, Alfred. All these years, and I don't know who he is any more than he knows who I am. He drives me. How can two people hate so much without knowing each other?
We then cut to Barbara and Commissioner Gordon enjoying some quality father-daughter time, when an unexpected knock comes upon the door. She opens it up, sees the Joker's terrifying grin smiling back at her, he lifts his gun, and shoots her right where his perverted mind would want to shoot a woman. Gordon takes a beating and they carry him off, leaving Barbara bloody and helpless. But not before we get one of the most famous lines from the book.
Why are you doing this?
To prove a point. Here's to crime.
We then get another flashback, where we see the Joker agreeing to help the Mafia rob a factory in a desperate attempt to get some money for his wife and the baby that's on the way.
You're not lying when you say we'll get away with it. Nobody will know I was involved.
Not to worry, friend. We'll take care of you.
We need your help getting through that chemical plant you used to work and into the playing card company next door. It's your expertise we appreciate.
Seeing the Joker as a complete mess of a guy who's willing to do anything to prove to himself he's not a complete failure just adds more complexity to his character. It was no secret before the book that the Joker had experienced some messed up stuff before he got into crime, and this is a really touching way of portraying it. I really like it. We then go to the hospital, where it's determined Barbara's alive, but she'll never walk again. Now this is where I can go back to the whole, I understand why they did the whole Batgirl thing. One of the few problems people had when the book first came out was how quickly and passively they brushed over the crippling of Batgirl, one of Batman's closest friends. She suddenly enters the story and is suddenly shot. The fans felt such a significant change in the overall story of the comics needed more weight than what was in the book. So what did they do in the film? They overcompensated. In an attempt to give Batgirl's tragedy the weight the fans wanted, they made the first half hour of the movie entirely devoted to her, so that, hopefully, viewers would get attached to the character and get really emotional when she gets shot. They tried to fix the one problem people had with the book, they overcompensated, and it really backfired. If they were really trying to integrate her into the story so that her crippling would be way more emotional, they should have just given us a little stuff at the beginning. Not a lot, but enough so that we still felt the weight of what happened and felt the consequences of how it's going to affect everything in the overall DC Comics. Okay, back to the movie. It turns out the Joker bought the theme park, kidnapped Gordon, and nearly killed his daughter to prove to him and the world that he's not really that bad, and any man who experiences tragedy can go crazy. This is where the brilliance of the film begins. It's not in the plot, it's not in the action, it's in the Joker's dialogue. Even though a lot of it is word for word from the book, you can't deny that the next few minutes are some of the best writing in comic book film history. It's incredible how deep the Joker's dialogue here delves into his psyche. Every single word that comes out of his mouth conveys a critical aspect of not only his very soul, but human psychology in general. He talks about the nature of sanity, the value of memories, the influence memories can have on what someone defines as sanity. He debates whether it's even worth it to have sanity, whether reason and prudence elevate us as a species or tie us down. This is some really deep, heavy stuff that not only gives us a full-on textbook on the Joker's mindset, psychology, motivations, ideology, and regrets, but also raises serious questions about human psychology in general. What is sanity? Can a distinction between sanity and insanity actually be proved in any way? What kind of influence do our memories have on what we consider to be reason in the first place? At what point does sanity hinder us while insanity helps us? All of this is perfectly summed up in the best lines in the entire film. Everything I just said is perfectly summed up in these couple of sentences.
It's not like we're contractually tied down to rationality. There is no sanity clause. So when you find yourself locked onto an unpleasant train of thought, headed for places in your past where the screaming is unavoidable, remember this: there's always madness. You can just step outside and close the door on all those dreadful things that happened. You can lock them away forever.
When was the last time you saw a comic book film get this deep? We then get another flashback where we see the Joker ready to go to get that Mafia job done. But right when it's bullet time, he receives soul-destroying news. His wife was killed in a house accident. His wife and his child, the two people he entered the Mafia to financially support, the two people that serve as his only motivation for anything he does, are now dead. And to make matters worse, the Mafia guys aren't letting him off the job.
Oh, no. I'm sorry about your wife, but what's happening tonight, it's no little thing. And we can't ensure that anybody backing out remains healthy.
The film continues as Gordon is put on one of the rides and is shown graphic pictures of his crippled daughter, nearly naked and covered in blood. Did I mention this movie's rated R? As he's shown all of this, the Joker continues to preach the benefits of insanity in a way only the Joker would. In song.
When the world is full of care, and every headline screams despair, when all is rape, starvation, war, and life is vile.
As silly as this sounds, it actually does a really good job of continuing the Joker's sermon on the human mind. After that, we get our last flashback, as the Joker has to help the Mafia rob the factory while he's still in shock over the death of his wife. They run into unexpected security, Batman shows up, and he falls into a gigantic tub of chemicals. And then, in one of the most powerful images of the whole film, we see him crawl out of the muck and watch in horror as his tears slowly fade into maniacal laughter. He was already going insane, with his self-esteem at the Earth's core and the sudden death of the two people he risked everything to provide for. But now, the screwed-up effects of the chemicals on his mind have topped it off and made it official. His mind is completely gone. Batman shows up to the theme park and finds Commissioner Gordon bewildered, but still sane, and with a few choice words.
By the book! You have to. We have to show him our way works.
This is when we get some interesting insight into Batman's mind as well.
You had a bad day once, am I right? Oh, I know I am. I can tell. You had a bad day and everything changed. Dressing up like a flying rat doesn't hide it, it screams it. You had a bad day and it drove you as crazy as everybody else, only you won't admit it.
One interesting detail about this room that I didn't notice at first and had to have pointed out to me is that it's an exact recreation of his old apartment. This shows that broken man still exists inside of him, and his world has literally been turned upside down. We then get the climax, which is one of the most emotional Batman moments ever put to film. Batman talks about how he doesn't want this continuous cycle to continue until they both end up killing each other, and he understands what the Joker might be going through.
I don't know what it was that bent your life out of shape, but maybe I've been there too. Maybe we could work together. I could rehabilitate you. You don't need to be alone. We don't have to kill each other. Let me help you.
I'm sorry, but no. No. It's far too late for that.
And then we get this. It may seem random at first, but believe me, it's very, very important.
You know, it's funny. This reminds me of a joke. See, there were two guys locked in a lunatic asylum. And one night they decided they didn't like that anymore. They decided to escape. So they made it up to the roof, and there, just across this narrow gap, they see rooftops stretching across town, stretching to freedom. Now, the first guy, he jumps right across, no problem. But his friend, oh, no way. He's afraid of falling. So the first guy, he has an idea. He says, hey, I got this flashlight with me. I'll shine it across the gap between the buildings, and you can walk across the beam and join me. But the second guy says, what do you think I am, crazy? You just turn it off when I'm halfway across.
That may just seem like another silly Joker thing, but it isn't. Let me explain to you why this joke is so important, and why the book and the film are called The Killing Joke. The two guys locked in the lunatic asylum are Batman and the Joker. They're both individuals suffering from mental instability due to tragedy in their lives. They both need help. Plus, in the same way the two lunatic asylum guys and the Joke need each other to escape the asylum, Batman and the Joker need each other to heal. They are exactly the same and exact opposites at the same time. They are two halves of a whole, the yin to each other's yang. The gap between the buildings is the gap between healing and sickness. In the same way that the first lunatic jumps across the gap successfully, Batman has found some sort of healing successfully. And in the same way the second lunatic is afraid of falling, the Joker is afraid of what's going to happen to him if he lets the world in, if he lets people see the broken man inside of him. Just like the first lunatic shines the flashlight across the gap to help the second lunatic join him, Batman offers the Joker a slim but sure opportunity at finding healing. But the second lunatic is sure the first guy will just turn off the beam when he's halfway across. Just like the Joker is still afraid that, if he allows Batman to help him, the world will betray him once again, just like it's betrayed him hundreds of times. The Joker laughs, Batman laughs, and the movie ends with just the sound of Batman's laughter alone, giving the idea that some of that insanity is in him too. And that, my friends, was Batman the Killing Joke. What more can I say? I'm not going to act like it's one of the greatest films ever made. It's not, and it definitely has problems. But at the same time, it's the perfect character study of one of the most popular villains of all time. We've seen comic after comic and film after film tell us what the Joker is, but this movie shows us who the Joker is. And to be perfectly honest, I get it. I mean, I've gone through a lot of depression in my life. I did a great job of hiding it from the world, but I've gone through some really dark days where I just felt like nothing was worth it and I wasn't worth it. Such experiences have given me a fascination with human psychology, a zeal for finding why we feel these things and what we can do to heal ourselves. It's not easy, and things can just as easily backfire as anything else, but it's possible to find what you need. Be a Batman. Be someone who's experienced a lot of terrible stuff, but rose above it. Found a way to turn all that negative energy into something positive. Don't be a Joker. Someone who allows the crap life dumps on us to screw them up and make them terrified to let anyone in, to let anyone see how broken they really are. I'm proud to say I'm a Batman. I found a great god and an art form that allows me to express myself in ways my words and actions can't. Find something that does that for you. Doesn't matter what it is, but find something that allows you to show the world who you are when you're terrified to do it yourself. And I promise, things will get better. I'm Mota Prometheus 1, and I'll see you next time on a brand new episode of We Swear We're Not Disney. But believe me, it's very, very important. Shut